White liberals need black Christians. Or maybe a better way to say it is white liberalism needs black Christian thought and or black Christian tradition. I don't know. I know this may not be the most PC or even academically appropriate way to express this sort of a thought, but just hear me out.
God is on the side of the oppressed.
Oh, what radicalized you? I'll fucking tell you what radicalized me.
America's about having an abortion with a gun.
When I was in 8th grade, my dad came home from a miserable, terrible, grueling day at work and said, hey, put your shoes on, we have to go to the school board meeting.
It's about getting a job you hate in the hopes that one day you could get a job you hate that pays more money than this one.
My school had just implemented a policy that anyone could get a free lunch at school regardless of financial status, paid for by the taxpayer. Now, 8th grade me thought that was a real fucking good deal. I still think that. And I thought then that anybody with a rational fucking brain cell would think the same.
Nothing anyone is saying politically is inspiring to me.
But we got to that school board meeting and I watched as the same people that I saw at Sunday church every Sunday stood up in front of the board and talked about how this was a terrible thing and that they were all shelling out for all these people that didn't need a free lunch.
I have never been more nihilistic in my entire fucking life.
So we only have white meat. Reparation?
But I am to the point where I will sit on a hill roasting marshmallows as I watch the world burn.
Reparation.
I know a lot of white atheists. I don't know many black atheists, not none, just not many. I got a theory about why there's not many black atheists. Here goes.
Nothing is revolutionary. And I know that's not inspiring or hopeful, so if that's what you're looking for, and you should be looking for that, please scroll away.
Atheism is really like the height of white privilege. It really is, because religion basically says like, hey, can we interest you in an afterlife? And white people are like, oh, no, thank you.
This is just the feelings of a bitter millennial bitch, okay? Nothing Gavin Newsom or any influencer or artist or activist could say or do right now would inspire me. We did this shit. I did this shit 8 years ago. And I fought like fucking hell on this app to stop history from repeating itself in an even stupider and more violent way. And I was unsuccessful. As
I watch the world burn.
White liberals have been caught in an existential dread that has deeply impacted the social and political zeitgeist. And I feel like we have to address it. So, white liberals, if it's okay, I just want to talk to you guys directly for a moment. I'm sure it'll be all types of people in the audience watching this video, but for now, let's just pretend it's just you and me, okay? In my living room, on my couch, just having some good conversation. Is that cool? You comfy? Okay, let's talk. No, but like I need this intro to be clear and concise. Like, does it make sense to you when you watch it?
Yes, it makes sense. The only thing that I would give some pushback on is white liberals. We have literally had to fight and protest for generations to get where we are, and you're upset because your 1 or 2 rounds of voting didn't get you what you want. Like, you have to put in the work, sweetheart.
I really felt like you guys needed to be individually pulled aside for some conversation about things like faith and hope, because I've been in your political spaces on virtually every single level for a long time. I've been to the marches that you guys host and to every meeting. I've worked in Congress and I've worked on the local political stage for some of the most progressive politicians in a conservative state for that matter. So keep that in mind, the context of just how committed to the cause I was despite all of the opposition that we faced. And furthermore, I share in your general sentiments around the best ways to progress our country forward in terms of economic populism or economic policies and concern for the poor and working class people. Trust me, I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. Can you say that? Can we still say that? I guess I'm black. I can say anything. Trends are based off of what we say, right? Okay, whatever. Let's keep going. For the sake of this video, I want to say that I do recognize the various distinctions between liberalism versus progressivism and how these two groups are not necessarily interchangeable in political thought or ideology.
10 years ago, liberal often meant what now we mean by progressive. more recently, the progressive, socialist-leaning part of the political spectrum has started to use liberal to mean Joe Biden, to mean someone who is not really left enough. Where I identified, I'm going to now use the term progressive more commonly to describe my own beliefs, because liberal has now been made a smear. It's being shifted into something else. And it also means more of like a center-left politics. Mm-hmm. So it's changed in some sense by necessity, by force, and also because the spectrum has shifted to some degree.
So for the sake of this video, please know that I am using the broader term liberal not to represent any one party or idea affiliation exclusively, but rather a subgroup of people that generally fall on the side of progress. But to simplify it even further, just so we're absolutely clear, I'm talking to every white person who is not a conservative, a neoconservative, or some kind of adjacent character to it. Is that fair? Does that make sense? Everybody clear as we move forward? Okay. And also, child, white political schools of thought get so nuanced and so deep into just the intellectual mosh pit of Nowhereville that honestly it would get too dangerous to try and create distinctions too much in this conversation anyway. That's why you'll hear me remark a ton throughout this video that this is indeed not a political video, because ain't nobody got time for all of that. White political thought is way too much. And well, actually, we're going to get into why it's too much a little bit later in the video. But anyway, let's talk about what this video is about. In my time in these political spaces, both in person and online, one of the things that I have come to find that has always bugged me and made me never stray too far from my roots of that good old black church background was the liberal spaces in and of themselves. If I can be honest, I always joke and say that working in Congress and progressive spaces actually pushed me back to the arms of Jesus, and I mean pushed me hard. But truthfully, it was the nihilism and what I'd arguably call the hedonism of progressive and liberal white spaces. Y'all are really, really good at organizing and orchestrating campaigns and strategies to bring home decisive and necessary victories. And I've learned so much, truly, from working in white liberal organizing and political spaces. I mean, stuff that I will be able to take with me forever in multiple spaces and arenas that I'll work in. But, and I'm sorry, but I gotta be honest, y'all, that nihilism and the hedonism, it's a lot. And if you're unfamiliar with either of those words, it basically means the negativity and self-indulgence. Or if you need the literal definitions, here they are. But we'll talk more on both of those later. For now, I think it's more important for us to connect on the heart level. We need to talk about why I think there's been such disillusionment in these very spaces that would lead to such levels of negativity and self-indulgence. And most importantly, how white liberalism, if reformed with the added tenets of Black Christian thought, could be transformed for the better, thus impacting the entire social zeitgeist for the better. Because truly, if I'm being honest, that's why it matters to me. White people still make up the majority of this country.
So have you seen these headlines that say that the United States will become a minority white country by 2045? Well, that's not really true, and here's why. It's wrong because it assumes that all people who identify as Hispanic or Latinos are not white, and or that they will always be thought of in this way. But for context, ethnically Irish, Italian, and Slavic communities did not fit neatly into the category of white in the 19th and parts of the 20th century, and because of this, they face intense discrimination. But through mass assimilation to the ideas of white supremacy, the ethnic differences between these groups began to soften. But at the same time, the racial lines between them and Black Americans hardened through widespread indoctrination and enforcement of anti-Black racism. And Latino Americans today are a racially diverse population. And in 2021, 58% of Latino adults polled by Pew self-identified as white based on census designations. This New York Times essay, which I highly recommend, puts forward the idea that the historical pattern that I outlined with the Irish is and will be replicated amongst lighter-skinned and white Latino communities as well.
So as much as we can invoke change in those of you that are willing to adhere to change, the more we have a shot in possibly seeing incremental change on the policy level and thus on the day-to-day human connection level. But anyway, enough with all my liberal tree-hugging platitudes. Here are a few of the ways that Black Christian thought can help transform white liberalism. Y'all's hopes are too steeped in intellectualism and you rely too heavily on the self. Don't get me wrong, I get it. The divine was presented to so many of you pretty effed up.
Homosexuals, we believe Jesus would support holding up a sign that says, "Thank God for dead soldiers."
Jesus is holding the sign that says, "Thank God for dead soldiers."
But God will judge fornicators and adulterers.
I'm happy right now because I haven't seen near as many rainbow flags and rubbish as we've seen last year.
Jews will not replace us! White lives matter! White lives matter!
150 years ago, or 200 years ago, when the blacks were slaves, did they ever go to Washington, D.C. and have a rally 200 years ago to protest against slavery? Did they? No.
So many of you were born into an evangelical world that said both covertly and overtly many times that morality and goodness were yours by birthright, and anyone who didn't look or act like you or who didn't have the same things you did were obviously suffering from some sort of moral failing on their part and thus being punished as a result. So of course, once the world became open to you and you had the courage to run far from that ideology and realize just how false it was, you did just that.
Mom, are you a fascist?
I don't think so.
Are you against fascism?
I would say yes.
Then you're Antifa. Dad, are you a fascist?
Wait.
No.
Are you against fascism?
I'm a Republican.
Are you against fascism?
No, I'm for Republican.
Are you against fascism like everybody who fought in World War II was?
Everybody who fought in World War II was not against fascism.
That's literally what we were fighting against.
You're confusing me.
Huh? Do you think Hitler was a fascist?
No.
But morality and goodness and the existential does in fact have a place, though. A place that does not derive solely from one's own self. Like, in simple terms, you don't have to be your own God, because what a burden that is, right? And I think what many liberals have replaced God with, though, is a school of thought that struggles to justify justice beyond robotic policy, philosophical arguments that are so often easily torn apart by the stronger arguments of the day or a new character with more compelling speech and charisma, which kind of tracks because evangelicalism and whiteness has, since its creation, worked hard to intellectualize its way into justifications for the abhorrent behaviors of its institutions. It takes a lot of thought to make oneself okay with the atrocities white people have historically committed against the entirety of humanity, really. So that inclination toward thought and having to think your way through things is not wrong. At this point, I'd imagine it's innate. But what I challenge you with, my dear, is to reach beyond yourself now and into the soulish realm, the realm beyond your brain where the sustaining power of your beliefs rest. Those same beliefs that challenge you to uproot yourself from the folly of what you came up in. What Black Christian thought offers in this space is the chance for you to move beyond intellectual exercise and into a place of spiritual discipline. This tradition says people matter, not because we did a comparative analysis between Aristotelian and Socratic perspectives about why and if they do, but because we know that God says that people matter. That's it. And sometimes that's just enough. This gives concepts like justice and hope a moral gravity and a sort of a staying power that so many white liberal spaces are often missing. Now, I recognize that this is a far reach for many of you because so many are largely at a place of either full-on atheism or apathy about the divine altogether. And so let me be clear. To the atheist liberal, I don't have much for you right now anyway, because that's an entirely different video. But to the liberal that is on the fence about their faith, or to the one that has or is in the process of deconstructing from their faith, and maybe that process was one of the hardest things you've ever had to do, because I know faith is such an integral part of our being and our makeups, and relinquishing it can sometimes feel like it can be akin to a death of sorts. So to those of you that are struggling with something like that, I'm talking to you. To the liberal kind of still figuring out how to square away the feel-good feelings that they still hold dear from the Bible or the Sunday school teacher that they had in their youth, but they also are still struggling because the truth of history has gripped their present and has kind of left you cynical about it all now. I'm talking to you too. Get out of your head and get into your heart, because the kind of hope you're going to need to sustainably create contentment in your life or find contentment in your life, it can't come from institution time or what you think you can force out of them. It's gonna have to come from joy and faith being spiritual disciplines in your life. Not things you go get when you win the prize of ridding the world of its evils or getting rid of the bad politician or the bad policy. And no, hear me very clear. That does not absolve us of our responsibility. That does not mean we don't try. It just means we try for and from different reasons that are not so fleeting and self-centered. Black Christianity models a moral imagination bigger than politics and personal perspectives. This emotional and moral endurance is something political ideology alone just cannot produce. Which brings us to point 2, anarchy and entitlement. You want to know why there was so much overlap in the Bernie and Trump supporters? And I swear this is not a political video. I swear, y'all, I swear. But it's because the ideologies were birthed from the same place, I believe. Anarchy. And I'm sorry to say it, but also entitlement. Now, I have no doubt that economic populism was in part some of the reason, and the exit polls absolutely do point that out.
The swing is because people want lower prices. They probably believe that Trump would give them that.
He means what he says and he acts upon it. He walks the walk as well as talking the talk.
A lot of the elites in our country aren't necessarily adequately compensating for what they could give to society. They're a lot more selfish than they could be, and they could definitely help support our country more.
But what also can't be denied is that the F it and burn it all down inclination in this group is also rampant. Has economic policy in this country been skewed to benefit those with assets and subsequently leave dormant and unhelped those without them? Yep. Unquestionably. Millennials are the first generation in modern U.S. history to face the prospects of being less wealthy than their parents' generation at their same age. I mean, in essence, if we really just had to put it frankly, capitalism is eating itself. But again, this is not a political video. So rightfully so, people were and presently are angry. But the irony here, though, is that these economic facts, this disparity has always been true for Black people. Yet we never, not en masse anyway, vote apart from liberal ideologies or the more liberal party. And to the dissenters who will try to interject here and say that it is a mistake that Black people vote so faithfully to the Democrat Party. Yeah, I say sure, but that's not the point here. And also, it's not all the way accurate either, because before the Southern strategy was enacted fully in the 60s, Black people were voting Republican, and to the extent that we could vote at all, barring racist terrorists weren't blocking our votes at the polls and voter suppression anyway. But my point is, Black people have always been loyal to the ideology because they had no choice, because we knew that the collective experience and literal quality of life would be impacted by the decision we made politically. Ideologically, our perspectives have always had to be rooted in convictions, not theories and philosophies that tickled our fancies for the moment. Of course, Black political thought is as vast as all schools of thought, and arguably more, all things considered. But the tradition that rooted us, in as much as we can be viewed through a collective lens, is Black Christianity. It is the deconstructed Black Christian thought that gave language and a model of liberation for the Zora Neale Hurstons and the Malcolm X's and others like them to dissent, to model their exploration into more expansive political religious thought. I say all that to say, this is not me sheep herding you, liberal, listen good to me. This is not me sheep herding you into anti-intellectualism or into some pseudo-intellectualism like white evangelical thought has so long required of its followers. I reflect on the expansive nature of Black Christian thought just to show you how possible it is to actually hold both supernatural beliefs in something while also acknowledging the truth of reality, and those things not having to work in opposition to one another. You don't have to forego morality or intellect to believe in something higher than yourself. And I mean, no shade, no tea. That's that white Christianity stuff. I'm sorry. Like, to put it plainly, to put it bluntly, no shade to y'all parents and the ways that y'all grew up. We don't move like that. But back to Bernie and Trump point, because I was getting somewhere with that. I've seen this trend of white liberals crossing over ideologically, and in essence, I just believe it's because the convictions driving their actions and beliefs aren't really rooted in anything. I'm sorry, at least not anything sustaining to begin with.
This is my first time voting because I just turned 18 right before I was able to vote. So I've voted for Trump, but I'm primarily a Democrat.
Like, oftentimes, and this is hyperbolic and anecdotal, but I've heard these things in real life. A professor taught a good class on a philosophical truth that struck you and compelled your ideology. Or maybe it's because perhaps your parents pissed you off with their racism or their bad political take. But y'all, I'm sorry, that kind of stuff is just not enough to drive your political thought is all I'm saying. And I'm asking for you to consider God as something that drives your political thought, and not just stuff that's centered around your own self or your own perspective or what you think you know or what you think you're even owed. That's all I'm saying. Okay, next point. You are a part of a collective. You know, one of the things that I love about being a Black person, in particular a Black woman, though this is most certainly not exclusive to Black people, let me be clear, and actually it's more indicative of African and Eastern traditions, but still, it is the concept of the collective. Black Americans and Black Christian thought prioritizes and has historically moved as a collective in so many ways that have been so consequential to just history in general and the progress we've made. And largely this is because we've had to, by virtue of just being outnumbered and being so pathologized in some of the worst ways, but also because what affects one has affected us all. This hasn't always meant that we have agreed on everything, of course, or that we are monolithic in any way, because clearly that's not true. But Black Christianity certainly does offer a communal ethic in ways that white liberalism could truly benefit from, as it often relies too much on individual expression and autonomy as the highest good. But I believe this is a derivative of white conservative thought, though, that is the basis of all school of white thought in this country, honestly. But it gets in the way too often of real progress and good intentions of well-meaning liberals, I think. All white people in one way or another have been indoctrinated either directly or indirectly in the ideology of conservative whiteness. Even if you grew up with more liberal, quote unquote, liberal parents, because keep in mind, conservative in this context doesn't mean political ideology at all. When I say conservative in this context, I mean the traditional way of existence and being. And the traditional ways of existence and being for white people has always been white as the norm and default, and everybody else is viewed as lesser or other. Now, with that in mind, white American conservatism is a system built on exclusion and acceptance of the status quo, so long as it benefits white people and disadvantages everyone else. Its origins are rooted in an idea that says you are inherently owed something if you are white. And this is evidenced by all the successful people you know, everywhere, in all the places, in all the times, being white. So yes, even if no one ever told you that explicitly, it is most certainly implied that if you are white, there is an element of I should have, I can have, I will have, because I am fill in the blanks. Friend and white liberal, my friend, you are a victim of that, even though you don't mean to be. And it's okay, but you are. That's what it means to be part of a collective, acknowledging the history that you are part of and some of the ways you benefit from it or perhaps have caused harm as a result of it. Now that we have a healthy understanding of collectivism and how it manifests for you guys, at least partially anyway, here's how you guys can use it for your benefit. Y'all need to start going back home. I know it's such a trend right now for people to cut off family members, particularly for the white libs. cutting off their more conservative family members because of how insufferable they are or how insufferable they find them at the Thanksgiving dinners, not going home for the holiday, all the things. I've heard all the conversations.
Shut up about politics at the family gathering.
I'm a blue-haired liberal. Talking about politics is like my favorite thing to do. I think that there's a really big misconception that like talking about politics at dinner will always be a fight and it will always create division in your family and it's always going to be a disaster, but that's just not the case. If you are somebody that approaches politics with a very compassionate, kind energy, those conversations don't have to go terribly.
You have the option to talk about whatever you think should be the topic of the Thanksgiving dinner.
And you know what? I can't even say that I blame you or that I don't get it. I know that it's hard making peace with folks whose ideology is about sowing discord and dysfunction, and I would never ask anyone to put themselves in harm's way. But also, there is something to be said about giving back and teaching the lost and less fortunate. Black Christian thought helped Black people to endure some of the most heinous things imaginable. It didn't make us immune to pain, but gave us a framework through which to suffer without loss of dignity. I offer that to you to say, I know that pain and discomfort in the white liberal worldview is it's often framed as too harmful and thus completely intolerable. But there is such a thing as, which also comes from scripture too, at least in our tradition, lamenting without giving up, thus the whole book of Lamentations. If you don't have compassion and understanding for your people, you surely can't expect anyone else to. And sure, you could argue that it's not your problem to fix them or reform anyone else, but these are your folks. Similarly, Black Christian tradition has historically gone into where their very people are and have been in the trenches and have been the teachers and the reformers enacting social good and transforming the political landscape for the better.
The Black church has had to be everything to Black people because American society was unwilling to do so. Today, we don't need the church to do the same things for us, but do I think the church is still a relevant institution? Absolutely. It is the place that you can come and rebuild your spirit after you deal with the spiritual assault on Black life that many African Americans experience because of enduring histories of racism and discrimination.
White Christians have historically done the literal opposite out of hatred, miseducation, and ignorance, and a whole bunch of other stuff that I'll never be able to speak fully to because I ain't white. But you are, though. I mean, maybe not you fully, because I don't know who all is watching this. And I'm not saying to give up your whole life trying to save people, but I do think that the white liberal can do more reaching back instead of poking fun at their parents and relatives and former church members, because I'm gonna be real, some of y'all's disdain or TikTok reels and all the poking fun that y'all do about y'all own folks, it does reek of elitism a little bit, and it's so anti-liberalism and anti-real progress. No one can know their plight more closely or speak to it than you can, and possibly rescue them more than you can because you grew up with them. You know that stuff. All I'm saying is don't underestimate your power as a white person to talk to and transform another white person's life. Y'all gotta go back to the block, or in this case, the farm, or wherever, and talk to your peoples. Go get your peoples. Okay, number 4, the dangers of self-reliance. What I've come to find with white liberal thought is that it's rooted in the ideologies itself. And at some point, the ideologies become insufficient. They always do, and they're always able to be outmatched and outsmarted by the next school of thought or political whim that draws them in, both positively and many times negatively. But what happens when the next faction you find yourself smitten with is more evil than you originally wanted to be, or more hateful than you originally anticipated? You wanted to be an anarchist, not hateful, or maybe you just wanted to blow up the system, because I heard that so much to invoke change, not blow it up so badly that it prevents change from being ever possible altogether. And now you find yourself slipping further and further into those ideological spaces and further away from where and why you originally started out this deconstruction process in the very first place. Maybe this process has landed you right in the hands of the grapers, child. because I know that's how cyclical white political thought goes. It's this hollow intellectual loop that leads to just hollow ineffectiveness and more disaffected people, particularly disaffected young white men. It's such a sick, vicious cycle, much of which is driven by internet bots on bot forums, not even in our country. But don't get it mistaken, it's also made possible because whiteness was created and it is forever trying to reaffirm and establish itself so as to not lose relevance or footing socially. These fruitless thought exercises that white boys find themselves in online are examples of a people group eating itself because they are yearning for identity. White liberal, you have something to offer them, but it can't just be your economic populist agenda. Though I am on board with you, fam. Trust me, I really am. But your agenda has to come with something attached to it, something hopeful, something bigger than your 3-point plan that you drew up in your big NYU brain. Shout out to you, your NYU degree. I'm a nerd. I personally love that stuff. But also though, in all of my nerdiness, I recognize that it's just not enough. Why do we pursue economic populism? Why are democratic socialist policies better? Why do we prioritize compassion for the least of these? What drives our motives? White evangelicalism lied. Black Christian thought has always professed this truth from the tops of the highest steeples. Jesus's words in Matthew 25:40, whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. We have always professed that. Perhaps you're feeling hopeless though, and like this world is incapable of change. The algorithms got you spinning round and round and round in the endless thought loops of nihilistic theories about how Rome fell, or how capitalism is the fall of the planet, or how Elon Musk is a secret robot monkey, how post-colonialism, I think that's a real video too, by the way. I haven't seen it, but I'm willing to bet that it is. How post-colonialism will be the end of civilization, how to eat magic beans to sustain after the apocalypse. Child, I don't know. YouTube be suggesting all kind of stuff. And when you are in those liberal, nihilistic, existentialist dread loops, the possibilities, honestly, they truly do get endless. But somehow you still made it to little old me on YouTube, a random girl who says she's a therapist and a seminarian, here to encourage you to try out Black Christianity. Which, by the way, I'm sure you're wondering, how do I suggest even doing that, right? And honestly, as of writing this script, I haven't even thought that all the way through, so stand by. Okay, I got it. Obviously, you can't become a Black Christian because it's a saucy bloodline kind of a thing. Sorry, Pooh. But what you can do is adopt Black Christian ideology. And I know I just said earlier, white liberals get too lost in ideologies, and that's part of the problem. But the good thing about Black Christian ideology is that it's rooted in something that transcends intellectualism, honey. But let's be clear, it's not beneath it. It's not less than intellectualism, because I know that can get confusing. And it's certainly not void of it. It just transcends it. It's rooted in tradition and faith. Black Christianity in itself deconstructed as a result of its literal birth being that of a rebirth from the grips of hatred, lies, and distortions. While historical white Christians were busy finding ways to contort scriptures to justify subhuman behaviors and less than primitive thinking, we took the shards of the broken faith they presented and reconstructed it with a supernatural spiritual precision. Obviously, Black Christian ideology hasn't been without its pitfalls and struggles, and I want to be very, very, very clear and careful not to present this argument in a way that mythologizes Black people. We are not magical creatures that have access to some magical powers that make us capable of enduring hardship in unique or different ways, because that kind of rhetoric is frankly racist and dangerous and has led to years of racial terrorism and trauma that we've experienced. So, no, I'm not saying that Black Christians and Black Christian thought will somehow cure all of white liberals' problems. No. But in fact, what I am saying is, though, Black Christian tradition is rich with perspectives that can be useful in combating the nihilism and hopelessness that plagues liberalism too often. Furthermore, what I love about Black Christian thought is that it offers joy without fake empty platitudes, without all of the reliance on whitewashed versions of history that never existed and likely never will. It's rooted in the Christian truth that says, in this life, Humanity is flawed and broken, but we have access to the one who is good, and through him we can affect change and good, not through ourselves. What Black Christian thought has to offer here is that the joy is mine, not because the world has given it to me, because frankly the world has not offered us anything but anguish, but rather joy is mine because it is inherent to the human spirit, and I have full access to it so long as I tap into the one who is higher than myself. From that place and through God, we have the power to enact good into the world. This thought is rooted in a rich reverence and acknowledgement of history, while also being tethered to a divine supernatural truth, both of which keep our hopes steady and real. And if I can say so myself, more real than any liberal secular meeting I've ever been to before, where we were meeting about some work that we have to do or some policy that we want to enforce. And I want to be clear, not because our efforts in that meeting were futile or useless, actually not at all, but because this hope, the Black Christian hope, it's a hope that relies on no human, no fixture, no institution even, but an ideology we commit ourselves to that drives us to commit to the work. And I think that's the key difference. White liberalism has historically said we don't have to look too hard at the history and make judgments about the present from that lens. These institutions are capable of changing. It's or they aren't so bad as I know it may seem, only to always end up disappointed and in eventual dread all too often, like they always do. But I think in my experience, what Black Christian thought responds with and has always been steady is we say from the jump, believe what the people say. Institutions are bad. History is proof. But God is our anchor because he is good. And the goodness I want for me and the world, God has more than made me both responsible and empowered for. Okay, but maybe you're asking, Raven, but why do you need some parent in the sky or some sky parent to empower you to do good things in the world? Why can't you just do them without feeling like you're being morally coerced? I mean, I personally wouldn't use that language, but if there is some proverbial person out there in the land who is asking that question, let me offer my response to that, because I try and anticipate dissent, and then we'll close here. Have you ever wondered why mangoes are so good? Or actually, mangoes are my favorite fruit, but I'm curious, whatever your favorite fruit is, I want you to get in your mind whatever your favorite fruit is right now, right? And think about how good it is. Like truly, just the taste of it. I want you to imagine it. And then I want you to imagine yourself eating it on the most beautiful scenery, like whatever day you enjoy the most. It's a beautiful sunny day. I'm just going to give you mine. It's a beautiful sunny day. One year we went to the Hawaii. I was in Hawaii. And what I imagine all the time is sitting out in Hawaii. It was like 80 degrees, having a mango, overlooking the waters. It was like a volcano, mountainous volcano, beautiful volcano. The water were just like reflecting the sky so majestically, and eating a mango sitting at the waterfront. Even thinking about it now, like stirs up emotions in me. And thinking about how delicious the mango was, like the I don't know if the scenery made the mango more delicious or the sweetness of the mango made the scenery more beautiful. Either way, the experience was transformative and truly transcendent. Mangoes don't have to taste good, but I think they taste good because something larger than us gave it purpose and meaning to do so. And I think the purpose and meaning behind it was to give us gratification and satisfaction, and to bring us pleasure and joy. Because a mango, if you really think about it, it could just be something that gives us nourishment so that we don't die. But not only does it give us nourishment so that we don't die, but it also is pleasuring to our taste buds. And it also gives us sugar spikes, right? It does something literally to our body and also our taste buds, and it tastes so wonderfully good. And it's all natural. Something with that much intentional precision, crafted by something that we can't touch or see, speaks to there being a metaphysical space that is so much larger than me that I feel so compelled and almost, and not even almost, absolutely morally obligated to bow to and adhere to, particularly on matters like the quality of life for human beings on the planet that I didn't have any hand in creating, but have the pleasure in partaking in. So that's why I adhere all of my political perspectives to a sky parent or something that's larger than myself, beyond this space, because Jesus, I want to be clear, because mangoes taste really good, and I know that's not accidental, and that points to something bigger. So I kneel to that bigger thing. Anyway, I love you guys, and this was fun, almost a little chaotic. I really want to have some discussion, and I hope the language wasn't a little too dicey or offensive. White liberals, if you're here, let's talk, because I know that y'all get down in the political or the thought loops, the existential thought loops that you guys love to get caught in. And this video is in part a birthing from being lost in some of y'all's thought loops on the internet. So let's create one in my comment section today, and let's have some conversation. I am pretty responsive. So anyway, like, comment, and subscribe as well. I'd love to keep growing this channel to be able to have more conversation, expansive conversation with more people, and grow this critical thinking family. So like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll talk later. Bye.